Mr. Rhodes wanted to create an organization modeled somewhat after the Jesuit Society because of its power and its far-reaching control and its secrecy. And he said that what Mr. Rhodes wanted to create was a dynasty. Those are the words that he used, an international dynasty, more like a knighthood, and this sort of thing. Well, did he do it? Of course he did. And you follow the history through. There was a college professor at Georgetown University,
Carroll Quigley.
Yeah. And he wrote the definitive history books on this secret society.
Is that Tragedy and Hope?
That's Tragedy and Hope is the better known one of them. And the other one is the Anglo-American Establishment. 2 books written about the history of this organization. And was he qualified to write about it? He said yes. In his introduction, he said, I was invited by this group to examine their private papers. He said, I liked the organization. I thought it was wonderful. I had no aversion to it or its goals. He said, the only objection I have is that it wished to remain secret. He said, I think by now they've done so much that the world needs to know about it, and so therefore he's writing those books. So that's Carroll Quigley. And we should know, for example, that Carroll Quigley was the professor that taught William Clinton at Georgetown University.
I think Bill Clinton loved his book. He spoke about it a lot.
Oh, yeah. Clinton was really a favorite student of Quigley. And when Clinton accepted the nomination of the Democrat Party for president, in his speech, he gave honorable mention to Professor Quigley and thanked him for all the profound influence he had on him. And so that tells you a lot right there. Clinton was telling the world, anybody that knew about Carroll Quigley and what Quigley had written, he was saying, I approve totally of Quigley, and therefore he was saying, I am now in the service of this secret society, and he wanted the world, for those who could understand it, he wanted them to know. And, of course, Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar. He was selected by.
Isn't Obama a Rhodes Scholar, too?
I cannot say yes to that.
I can't remember if I heard he was or not. I don't remember.
I have not heard. It doesn't ring true to me.
A lot of them are, though. Oh,
a lot of them are, yeah. There's no question about that. So anyway, we could go on and on and on and on, but the point now, let's get down to something pertaining to today. This secret society that Rhodes created evolved around the world into different groups in each country. The Royal Institute for International Affairs is what they call it in England, and all of the former British dependencies, they all have the same name, Royal Institute for International Affairs. And when I say secret, by the way, I must just take a step backward. Rhodes said that when he formed his organization, he wanted to follow a certain form, and it's called rings within rings within rings. And that is what he called it, and that's what it's been called throughout history, because the formula for this was actually created by Adam Weishaupt when he created the Illuminati. Now, everybody knows the Illuminati was raided, and the records were discovered, and everything about it is now very well known because the books are in the library in England, and it's been written and spread around the world. And everybody thought, well, the Illuminati was destroyed. Some people say it went underground and merely came up in other forms. I don't care which view you take. I do know that when Cecil Rhodes formed his secret society, he chose exactly the same structure that Adam Weishaupt described, which is rings within rings within rings. And by that, they both meant that in the center there was a group of maybe 1, 2, or 3 people which controlled the whole structure. And then they created around them a ring of members in another organization which appeared to be completely independent, and most of the members of that ring did not know that they were being led by an inner group of 3. And so maybe we got a group of 12 or 14 in this outer ring. And then they, in turn, created another ring around them of perhaps a couple of hundred members, and those couple of hundred didn't know that they were being controlled by the 12 or the 14. And then that one created another ring around it, which might have several thousand members, and they didn't know that they were being controlled by a small, and so forth. Those are rings within rings, and it was a way they could conceal the absolute control of a large organization from public view. Well, so when Cecil Rhodes created that third ring out, they called it the Royal Institute for International Affairs. And that's the first ring where it begins to look public, where you can actually go on the Internet, you can find the name, and you can see who the members are. And there are usually a couple of thousand members in these round tables, or what they call them, round tables, an inside word. But it's one of the larger third ring out structures of the secret society. And so, as I said, in most of the countries, it's called the Royal Institute for International Affairs. But in the United States, the same thing happened, but they didn't call it that because the word royal didn't go over too well in the United States. They gave it a different name. They called it the Council on Foreign Relations. It's the same group, except in this country, it's the Council on Foreign Relations, and the chief sponsor and director of it when it was first created here was J.P. Morgan. Okay? And this is all coming from the books and records of the people themselves. This is not a conspiracy theorist speaking. These are the conspirators speaking and boasting of how they did it. And so now the Council on Foreign Relations, we hear, is an organization it's got about 4,000 people, and it's very visible, but we don't know really what goes on. It's what they call semi-secret. They have meetings periodically in New York, and about, I'm going to say, 70 to 80% of the real rulers of America. By that I mean presidents of the United States, Supreme Court members, chairman of the Federal Reserve, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, head of the CIA, head of the FBI, etc. All of the people that really move and shake this country, 70 to 80% of them are members of the Council on Foreign Relations.
I think Obama is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations,
No, I don't think so. But he has spoken there. You see, nobody gets the nod from the CFR. The CFR really selects the president. And they all have to go and they speak at the CFR. And you've got video. You can go on the Internet and see the video of Obama speaking at the CFR. You can see a video of Hillary Clinton speaking at the CFR. They all have to go there and speak so that the members can evaluate them and ask them questions. What would you do under this circumstance? What would you do under this? And so forth. And if they pass the test, then they get the nod, and then they're viable candidates. That's how it works. So, you asked me to talk about Cecil Rhodes.
Sure.
Cecil Rhodes left quite a legacy, and
it's still going on.
Oh, it's going. It's stronger
still
now
rolling.
than ever. Yeah, absolutely, it's still going on.
Is it true that J.P. Morgan was an agent for the Rothschilds and that John D. Rockefeller really didn't like him? And then they eventually did some deals together, but there was competition early on.
Well, I don't know about the John D. Rockefeller not liking him.
John D. Rockefeller was not welcomed by J.P. Morgan, is what I read.
Yeah, well, I think that probably was true because they were competitors, but by the time they created the cartel, the banking cartel called the Federal Reserve System, they were working jointly because the Rockefeller banks and the Morgan banks were all joined together at the Federal Reserve. See, that was the reason for a cartel, is to bring competing components together. So they stop competing and start working together and provide a unified front against the public. But I can say with absolute authority that J.P. Morgan was an agent for the Rothschild banks. No question about it. And all the historians of Morgan have written about that. Morgan, of course, could not have survived the Great Depression in the United States without money from the Rothschilds and the Bank of England. When all the other banks and lending houses in the United States were folding, Morgan was able to get unlimited supplies of money and credit from the Rothschild group. And that's the only reason Morgan suddenly moved way ahead of the pack and became a dominant force when all the others were falling behind. And Morgan was an agent, no question about it. Maybe that's too strong a word, saying agent, but he was kind of an
instrument,
a front, or something like that.
A couple other things I want to talk about with you. One is the Mondrake mechanism. Now, I know that this gets into incredible detail about the function of the machine, having to do with not only fiat money but fractional reserve lending. And I wanted to find out why people talk about using gold or silver as money. There's this limited supply argument.
Well, let's start with that one.
Okay.
I'm a gold bug too. I think that everybody should be a gold bug in the sense that if you want to if you want to preserve the value of your work, in other words, if you